All right, so everybody's losing their minds about this whole TikTok ban thing, right?
Eh,
We're going to really get into it today and go deep on the facts, not just like hype, you know.
Yeah,
So we've got like news reports, expert opinions.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We want to give you guys the info you need to like actually understand what's happening and what it means for you. Not just like freak out, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, too, because this goes way beyond just TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
This could have, like, ripple effects across the whole social media landscape and maybe even further.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And like we're on a serious deadline here, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like some far off thing.
You're right.
WTHR News is saying Congress set a deadline of January 19th.
So that's, like, right around the corner.
Yeah, it's like days away. So what does that even mean? Does that mean like poof, TikTok is gone? Or like what happens?
So it's not going to be like a light switch, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just going to disappear overnight. Actually, the WTHR report had a good way to think about it. It's like that old phone you had, right? Remember how it slowly became obsolete?
Yeah, like you couldn't get updates for the apps anymore.
Right, exactly. And then, like, eventually it just kind of stopped working.
Yeah.
That's kind of how this is going to play out.
So even if the ban happens, it's not like my For You page is going to suddenly go blank.
No, it'll be a slower process. Like, if the ban goes through for new downloads and updates, they'll get blocked from the app stores.
Okay.
You could still use TikTok for a bit, but, like, eventually without those updates, it'll just become less and less functional.
So it'll be like a digital ghost town, kind of.
Pretty much. And, you know, there's still a chance that this whole thing could get avoided, right?
Yeah.
Like, TikTok is fighting the ban in court.
Yeah.
They've actually even appealed to the Supreme Court. But it's unclear if the court will even take the case, according to WTHR.
Okay, so legally speaking, things are still kind of up in the air. But let's say, hypothetically, the ban does happen. What kind of impact are we actually talking about here? Because I'm seeing people online saying like, oh, I'll just switch to YouTube or Instagram. Like, is that a real possibility?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. You've got all these creators, right?
Yeah.
Potentially millions who suddenly need a new platform. Where are they going to go?
Right. Makes sense.
YouTube and Instagram are the biggest players, so naturally they're going to be like the first choice for a lot of people.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
What does that mean, though, for the creators who are already on those platforms? Does it just get like super, super competitive?
Exactly. Like, imagine you've spent years building your following on YouTube, right? And then suddenly there's this huge wave of new creators all competing for the same views and engagement.
Oh, well, yeah.
You're fighting for space in a much louder room now.
Right. And speaking of loud, YouTuber Jade Beeson brought up something super interesting about like the financial side of all this. She mentioned that a whopping $1.25 billion was spent on U.S. TikTok influencer marketing last year. Where does all that money go if TikTok's gone?
That's the billion-dollar question. It's tough to say for sure, but it's likely that at least some of that budget will be redirected to other platforms, right? Brands still want to reach their target audiences, and influencer marketing, it works.
So creators who are already established on those other platforms, they could actually benefit from this.
Potentially, yeah. If you've got a strong following and engagement already on, say, YouTube or Instagram, you're in a really good position to capitalize on this whole shift.
But what about businesses, especially smaller businesses, who rely so heavily on TikTok for marketing?
Those businesses could be hit the hardest. TikTok's algorithm is known for giving those smaller creators and businesses a chance to go viral organically, which is really hard to achieve on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, where you often got to pay to play.
Jade Beeson actually called those paid ads on other platforms a trap, and I've definitely heard that before too. What makes them a trap, especially for smaller businesses?
Think about it. On TikTok, you can just post a video, and it has the potential to reach like a massive audience without spending a dime.
Right.
Facebook and Instagram, on the other hand, they're more of a pay-to-play game. You're competing with big brands and influencers who have tons of money to throw at advertising.
So you can't just like throw a few bucks at an ad and hope for the best.
Not at all. Effective advertising on those platforms, it takes a real strategy, precise targeting, and you got to be constantly tweaking and adjusting to get it right.
So it's not as easy as it looks.
Definitely not. And for smaller businesses, that can be a steep learning curve and a real strain on their budget. It's not that it can't work, but it's a totally different game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about how the potential ban could impact creators and businesses. Now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about something more practical. Even if the ban doesn't happen, What are some things our listeners can do to be prepared?
Well, Jade Beeson actually had some really good advice about this in her video.
Oh, perfect.
She had 3 key takeaways that I think are really valuable no matter what happens with TikTok.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first one?
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your platforms, whether you're a creator or a business.
Makes sense. So,
Yeah.
like, start exploring other options now.
Exactly. But don't just panic and jump onto every platform out there. Be strategic about it.
Yeah.
Think about your target audience, think about the type of content you create, and choose platforms that actually align with your brand and goals.
Great advice. What about number 2?
Own your audience. This means having a way to communicate directly with them without relying on the platform, right?
Right. Yeah.
And Jade Beeson's tip here is gold. Build an email list.
I know you're a big advocate for email lists. Why are they so important?
Think about it like this. An email list, it's like having a direct line to your most engaged followers.
Uh-huh.
If a platform disappears, you can still reach out to them, share updates, drive traffic to your other content, whatever.
You're not starting from scratch.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
your own little safety net in the wild world of the internet.
I love that. Okay, what's the third takeaway?
Reinforce your branding. Make
Yeah.
sure your content is recognizable and memorable even when it's taken out of context.
Okay.
Think like visual cues, a consistent style, maybe even a catchphrase or two. Jade Beeson had some great examples like always wearing the same color, filming in a specific location, rocking a signature hairstyle, things like that.
Oh, yeah, those are good ones.
Right. And all these little details, they add up to create a really cohesive brand identity, and it helps you stand out. And then if you do end up migrating to a new platform, your audience is way more likely to recognize you and follow you. It's all about building that familiarity.
Wow, we covered so much already. Like, we talked about the potential legal stuff, the impact on creators and businesses, and then even some solid advice for navigating this whole mess.
And we're just getting started.
Oh, no.
In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to be exploring the bigger picture implications of this whole TikTok thing. Like, what does it tell us about the future of social media? What about the power dynamics between governments and these tech companies? And most importantly, what does it mean for you, as a user, a creator, or a business owner in the long run?
Ooh, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get even more interesting.
Welcome back to our deep dive, you guys.
So before the break, we were talking about Jade Beeson and her advice, which was really good, about how to kind of like handle all of this stuff that's happening.
Right.
And she was really pushing like diversifying your platforms, owning your audience, and reinforcing your brand.
Really smart stuff.
It's all about being proactive,
Yeah.
right? Like, don't just wait for things to happen. Take control. And that actually kind of makes me think about something bigger,
Yeah.
Like, what if this whole TikTok thing, all this drama,
Right.
is like a wake-up call
Oh, interesting.
for everyone about how we're all using social media?
I think you're onto something. This situation really shows us something fundamental about social media.
Yeah.
Like, we don't actually own any of it,
Right.
We're just renting space.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. We're subject to their rules, their algorithms, and, even whether they continue to exist.
Yeah, it's like building your dream house on rented land.
Exactly. And that can be a really unsettling feeling, especially if you've poured your heart and soul into building a community on a platform like TikTok. You put in all this time, energy, creativity.
Like all that work.
Yeah.
So, like, what do we do then? Should we all just ditch social media?
I don't think that's necessarily the answer. I mean, social media, it's still a powerful tool, right? For connection, for creativity, even for businesses.
Yeah.
It's about using it in a smarter way, being more intentional about it.
So how do we actually do that? How do we get smarter about social media?
Well, first, we got to understand that putting all your eggs in one basket is risky.
Right.
We've already talked about diversifying your platforms, but it's worth repeating.
It's true.
Like, explore other options. See what's out there, experiment with different content formats, try new things.
Don't be afraid to branch out.
Exactly. And don't forget about owning your audience, right? Like what Jade Beeson was saying.
Yeah.
Think about creating a website, a newsletter, maybe even a membership community. These are all ways to connect with your audience without relying on a platform.
So it's like having your own home base, You're not just renting a room in someone else's house.
That's a great way to put it. And this isn't just for creators either.
Right.
Businesses need to be thinking about this too.
Hmm.
How can you build a stronger connection with your customers?
Yeah.
Things like loyalty programs, exclusive content, even just personalized communication.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it all helps build those relationships and makes your business more resilient.
It's all about being more intentional being more aware of how we're using social media.
I completely agree.
And this whole TikTok situation is definitely making us all think about that a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. It really highlights the limitations of these platforms.
And not just TikTok, right? It feels like a bigger issue, like the balance of power between governments and these huge tech companies.
Absolutely. This whole thing is a reminder that governments can step in, platforms can change their rules whenever they want, and our online presence, it can disappear in an instant.
Makes you want to be a little rebellious.
Yeah.
Like not just blindly following the rules, but taking control of our digital lives.
I think there's another really important layer to this conversation, one that's at the core of what it means to be a creator.
Oh, okay. Now I'm interested. Tell me more.
So we talked about diversifying platforms, right? Owning your audience, building a brand.
Right.
But what about diversifying your creative outlets too?
I don't think I follow.
Think about the creators who built their careers on Vine.
Oh, yeah.
What happened when that platform disappeared?
They had to start all over.
Right.
Or
Right.
businesses that went all in on Facebook marketing, and then the algorithm changed, and suddenly their reach just tanked.
Yeah.
It's like putting all your creative energy into one well, and then it just dries up.
So you're saying we need more than one outlet,
Exactly.
like not just focus on TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah. Think about what else you enjoy creating. Are you a TikToker who loves to write?
Okay.
Start a blog?
I like that.
Are you a YouTuber who wants to do a podcast? Go for it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're a business owner who loves photography. Share your work on Instagram.
So many options.
Right. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
This is great. It's about embracing different parts of your creativity, not just limiting yourself to one platform or one format.
Yes. And it's not even just about protecting yourself. It's about feeding your creative spirit, you know?
Exploring different ways to express yourself.
It's so easy to get caught up in the game of social media, like chasing followers and engagement.
Totally.
But this is a good reminder that creativity is much bigger than that.
Beautifully said. And that brings us back to the heart of this whole deep dive, really, this TikTok situation. It's showing us that we need to be thoughtful, strategic, and ultimately in control of our own digital lives.
We can't rely on these platforms to give us an audience or creative purpose. We have to create those things for ourselves.
That's really empowering when you think about it.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new way of looking at social media now.
Me too.
And not just social media, but creativity and the whole digital world, really.
We've learned a lot, but we're not done yet.
Oh, there's more.
In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to get even more practical. We'll talk about specific strategies for diversifying your creative outlets, building a stronger online presence, and taking control of your digital destiny.
Stay tuned, folks. The best is yet to come. Welcome back, everybody. We're jumping right back into this TikTok craziness and getting down to like the nitty-gritty of how to deal with all of it.
Yeah, we've explored a lot of the issues with the potential ban, but now we're going to equip you guys with some actual strategies to, come out on top no matter what happens.
I'm ready. Let's do it. Where do we start?
So let's go back to owning your audience, right? We talked about email lists, but think even bigger. Like, what about a website, a newsletter, maybe even a whole membership community?
I love all that. It's like creating a space that's totally yours, where you make the rules and you can really connect with your audience on a deeper level.
Right. And it's not even just about having a platform that's safe from algorithms or whatever. It's about creating that closer, more engaged community.
It's like building a tribe instead of just collecting followers.
Right. Exactly. And building a tribe takes effort, You got to show up consistently, provide value, and really interact with the people who are actually interested in what you have to offer.
It's about relationships, not just broadcasting messages into the void.
Now, let's talk about diversifying those creative outlets. We touched on this before, but I want to stress how important it is to just experiment.
To experiment. That's the magic word. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to be perfect right away.
Totally. Think of it as just playing around, What are some things you've always been curious about creatively?
Yeah.
Writing, podcasting, photography, filmmaking.
There's so many things.
There really are. The options are endless.
You can start small, right?
Of course.
You don't need a fancy studio or anything.
Just dip your toes in and see what you like.
Follow that curiosity.
Exactly. You might discover new talents, make new connections, and who knows what else.
It's about becoming a more well-rounded creator and more resilient too, right? Just expanding your skill set and tapping into those different creative parts of yourself.
Absolutely. And speaking of resilience, there's a really important mindset shift that can make a huge difference in this crazy digital world. It's about embracing adaptability.
Okay, adaptability. I like that. Tell me more.
Well, the online world is in constant flux, right? Platforms come and go, algorithms change, new technologies are popping up all the time.
It can feel like a lot.
It definitely can be. But the key is to be flexible, willing to learn and change when you need to.
It's like being a surfer, right?
Hmm.
Riding those waves of change instead of getting wiped out.
Perfect analogy. And it's not just about reacting to change, it's about looking for it, even seeking it out.
So instead of clinging to the familiar, we should be actively exploring new opportunities and possibilities, even if it feels a little scary.
Exactly. I know change can be intimidating, especially if you've been successful doing things a certain way.
Right.
But change is going to happen whether we like it or not, and growth, real growth, usually happens outside of our comfort zones.
So it's about being okay with the unknown, the unexpected, even the messy parts.
That's what it's all about, and this brings us back to the TikTok situation.
The full circle.
Yep. It's a big reminder that we can't control everything. Platforms might disappear, algorithms will change, the whole digital landscape could shift beneath us.
But we can control how we respond to those changes.
And that's the important part.
We can be proactive, diversify, own our audience, keep nurturing our creativity, and be adaptable.
Those are the tools we need to thrive in this environment.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much about TikTok, but also about navigating the digital world in general.
We've learned that resilience comes from diversifying, taking ownership, and being adaptable.
And at the end of the day, our creativity, our connections, and our purpose, those are all in our hands.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, as we wrap up this episode, we're left with one final question for you all. How will you take control of your digital destiny?
What steps are you going to take today to diversify, connect, create, and adapt? The future of the digital world is constantly evolving, so what will your story be?
That's all for this episode, folks. See you next time.